The Deep Space Monitoring Station picked up the signal at 0347 hours, Galactic Standard Time. The message was weak, crackling with static, but the Universal Translator worked its magic on the alien words. "This is Earth Defense Command. We are under attack by unknown forces. Our world is in danger. Please, anyone who receives this message, we need help. We are dying here." Admiral Vexitar read the report 3 times before setting it down on his command deck. Another primitive world crying for help. In his 200 years of service to the Galactic Council, he had seen this pattern countless times. A young species discovers radio waves, sends out desperate pleas when they face extinction, and the Council arrives to find only empty worlds or grateful survivors begging to join galactic civilization. The planet called Earth was listed in their databases as a Class C world. Primitive mammals who had barely learned to split the atom. They had been sending radio signals into space for less than 200 of their local years. Nothing special about them, really. Just another backwater planet in a small arm of the galaxy. But the signal was interesting. Most dying civilizations begged for rescue. These humans seemed to be asking for military assistance. They claimed to be fighting back against whatever was destroying them. "Captain Mordex," Vexitar called to his second-in-command. "Prepare a reconnaissance fleet. 3 cruisers should be enough. We will investigate this Earth and see what remains of their civilization." The journey took 4 days through hyperspace. When they dropped back into normal space at the edge of the solar system, the alien fleet immediately began scanning for signs of the battle that had supposedly devastated the human homeworld. What they found confused them. Earth was intact. Not just intact, but thriving. The planet glowed with the lights of billions of inhabitants. Orbital stations circled the world like metallic moons. Ships moved between planets in their system carrying cargo and passengers. "Admiral," Captain Mordex reported from his station, "I am detecting no signs of invasion or attack. The planet appears to be completely normal." Vexitar frowned at his displays. Perhaps the invasion was repelled? "Scan for debris fields or signs of recent battle." The scans came back negative. No weapon signatures, no debris, no radiation that would indicate recent combat. "Just a busy populated star system going about its normal business, sir," the communications officer interrupted. "We are receiving another transmission from the planet's surface. Put it through." The voice that came through their speakers was calm, professional. "Unknown vessels, this is Commander Blake of Earth Defense Command. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions in our system." Vexitar activated the communications array. "This is Admiral Vexitar of the Galactic Council Fleet. We received your distress signal requesting assistance against hostile forces. We have come to provide aid." There was a long pause before the human voice responded. "Distress signal? I think there might be some confusion, Admiral. We have not sent any distress signals. However, you are welcome to visit our world. We have been hoping to make contact with galactic civilization." This was becoming stranger by the moment. Vexitar checked the message logs again. The distress signal was definitely from this planet, sent just 1 week ago. The voice patterns matched the language they were hearing now. "Commander Blake, our records show a clear distress call from your world 6 days ago. You claimed to be under attack and requested immediate assistance." Another pause. Then, something that sounded almost like laughter in the human's voice. "Oh, that. Admiral, I think you might want to visit our training command on the northern continent. Someone there might be able to explain what you intercepted." 3 hours later, Admiral Vexitar and a small team of council officers stood on a viewing platform overlooking what the humans called a military exercise ground. What they saw below defied everything they thought they knew about primitive civilizations. Massive metal beasts that the humans called tanks rolled across the landscape. Each one was larger than a council assault vehicle and moved with mechanical precision. Artillery shells exploded in the distance, sending columns of fire and smoke hundreds of meters into the air. Aircraft screamed overhead at speeds that challenged council fighter craft. Impressive, isn't it? Commander Blake stood beside them, wearing what appeared to be camouflaged clothing. He was smaller than most council species, but there was something in his eyes that made Vexitar uncomfortable. "We were testing some new equipment last week. The communication arrays were running active scans looking for electronic signatures to target." "Target?" Captain Mordex asked. Blake nodded toward the destruction below. "We needed to test our weapons against unknown technology. Our computers were designed to send out signals that would attract any listening devices within 50 light-years. We figured if anyone was monitoring this sector, they might send a small fleet to investigate. The blood in Vextar's veins turned cold. You were using us as test subjects? Not exactly, Blake replied. We were hoping someone would show up so we could calibrate our targeting systems against real alien technology. Your ships are quite advanced. Our weapons needed to learn how to track vessels like yours. As if summoned by his words, alerts began sounding on the council officers' portable devices. Their ships in orbit were reporting weapons locks from the planet's surface. Dozens of them. Commander Blake, Vextar said carefully. Are we in danger? The human commander smiled. It was not a comforting expression. Admiral, you came here expecting to find a dying civilization begging for protection. Instead, you found a world full of predators who have been preparing for galactic contact for decades. We have studied every piece of alien technology that has drifted into our system. We have learned your weapon signatures, your shield frequencies, your communication protocols. On the field below, the artillery had stopped firing. Instead, the weapons were now pointing skyward, toward space, toward the council fleet. The distress signal was bait, Blake continued. We needed live targets to test our new defensive grid. Your ships are currently being painted by 47 different targeting systems. Each one is capable of puncturing council military armor. Vextar felt his legs go weak. What do you want from us? Nothing, Blake said simply. You are free to leave whenever you wish. We just wanted to see how long it would take for someone to respond to a call for help in this sector. 4 days is good response time. We will remember that, and if we refuse to leave, Blake's smile never wavered. Admiral, you came here to save a dying civilization. But Earth has no dying civilizations. We have something else entirely. The human commander activated a device on his wrist. Suddenly, the air filled with the sound of jet engines. Dozens of aircraft appeared overhead, moving in perfect formation. Each one carried weapons that could level city blocks. We have monsters, Blake said quietly. The kind that other monsters check under their beds for. You are welcome to test yourselves against us if you wish. We could use the live fire exercise. Admiral Vextar looked around at his officers. All of them had gone pale. Their portable scanners were showing energy readings from the planet's surface that defied belief. This primitive world had weaponry that could challenge a council battle fleet. I think, Vextar said slowly, we should return to our ships and file our report. Excellent choice, Blake agreed. Safe travels, Admiral. And thank you for helping us test our systems. The data will be very useful for future encounters. As the council shuttle lifted off from the human world, Vextar stared down at the planet's surface. Lights twinkled in the darkness, marking cities full of billions of these creatures. Creatures who had turned a simple request for contact into a military exercise. He began composing his report in his mind. The council needed to know what they had discovered here. Earth was not a primitive world seeking protection. Earth was something else entirely, something that made Admiral Vextar, veteran of a dozen wars, want to recommend that the council simply pretend they had never received that first transmission. Some sleeping monsters, he realized, were better left undisturbed. Captain Torres was 3 months into deep space exploration when the emergency beacon reached his ship. The automated message played in broken Galactic standard, filled with static and fear. Please help us. The pirates have returned. They are taking our people, our children. We cannot fight them anymore. Anyone who receives this message, we are at the Kepler mining station in Sector 749. Please help us. Torres looked at his navigation officer. How far are we from that position? 6 hours at maximum speed, Captain, Lieutenant Rodriguez replied. But sir, we are not equipped for military operations. We only have standard exploration defenses. The captain studied the star charts on his screen. The Kepler mining station was operated by the Velnari, a peaceful species that had been strip mining asteroids in that sector for decades. They were known throughout the galaxy as gentle creatures who avoided conflict at all costs. Set course for the mining station, Torres ordered. Maximum speed. Sir, what do we do when we get there? Sergeant Murphy asked from his position at the weapons console. If there are pirates involved, they will have military-grade equipment. Torres smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We improvise, Sergeant. We improvise. When they dropped out of hyperspace near the mining station, the tactical display immediately lit up with red markers. 8 pirate vessels surrounded the mining platform like vultures around a corpse. The ships were mismatched, cobbled together from stolen military hardware and civilian vessels. But they were armed, and they outnumbered the single human exploration ship. "Captain," Rodriguez reported, "I am detecting at least 200 Velnari life signs on the station. Most of them appear to be gathered in what looks like a holding area. The pirates are sorting them," Murphy observed, "deciding which ones to keep as slaves and which ones to sell." Torres activated the communication array. "Pirate vessels, this is Captain Torres of the human exploration ship Wanderer. You will release your prisoners immediately and withdraw from this system." The response came back filled with laughter. "Human ship, you are outnumbered 8-1. Leave now or we will add your crew to our cargo manifest." "I see," Torres replied calmly. "Rodriguez, begin passive scanning of their vessels. I want to know everything about their ship configurations, weapon placements, and engine signatures." "Sir," Rodriguez said quietly, "they are moving to intercept us. All 8 ships are breaking formation." Torres watched the tactical display as the pirate ships spread out in what they probably thought was an attack formation. To human eyes, they looked like prey animals trying to appear larger than they were. "Murphy," Torres said, "target the lead ship's engines. Not to destroy, just to disable. Sir, with respect, we are explorers. Our weapons are not designed for ship-to-ship combat. Sergeant, we are humans. We are designed for everything." The first pirate ship came in fast, weapons blazing. Plasma bolts and missile trails filled the space around the human vessel. But the Wanderer was no longer where the pirates expected it to be. Torres had cut engines and used the ship's momentum to drift behind an asteroid, letting the pirates' own weapons fire give away their positions. "Rodriguez, begin the hunt." What happened next would be talked about in pirate bars for decades afterward. The human ship did not fight like other vessels. It did not stay at range and trade weapons fire. Instead, it moved through the asteroid field like a living thing, using the floating rocks as cover and concealment. The pirates found themselves playing a deadly game of hide-and-seek with an opponent who seemed to know exactly where they would be before they arrived. The human ship would appear behind an asteroid, disable one of their vessels with surgical precision, then vanish again before they could return fire. "How are they doing this?" One pirate captain screamed over the communication channel. "They are everywhere at once." Torres smiled as he listened to the growing panic in the pirate voices. "Rodriguez, bring us around behind the group near asteroid 77. Murphy, prepare breaching charges." "Breaching charges, sir?" "We are going to board their command ship." The Wanderer emerged from behind a massive asteroid and attached itself to the pirate command vessel like a parasite. The pirates barely had time to realize what was happening before human soldiers were cutting through their hull and pouring into their ship. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. The pirates had expected a ship-to-ship engagement, not close-quarters combat with humans. They surrendered quickly when they realized their opponents moved through their ship like ghosts, appearing from ventilation shafts and maintenance tunnels they had not even known existed. "Captain," Rodriguez reported, "the remaining pirate vessels are attempting to flee the system." "Let them go," Torres replied. "But first download their navigation databases. I want to know where they came from and where they might run to." 2 hours later, Captain Torres stood on the mining station with Administrator Kexvala, the leader of the Velnari miners. The small blue-skinned alien kept bowing repeatedly, tears streaming down his face. "You saved us," Kexvala kept repeating. "You saved all of us. How can we ever repay you?" Torres looked uncomfortable with the gratitude. "Administrator, we were just passing through. Anyone would have helped?" "No," Kexvala said firmly. "The Council has been promising to send security forces for 3 years. Other ships have received our distress calls and changed course to avoid us. Only humans came when we called for help." "What will you do now?" Torres asked. "We will continue mining. But perhaps if you are willing, you could stay. Protect us? We could pay you, offer you exclusive mining rights, anything you want." Torres shook his head. "We appreciate the offer, Administrator, but we are explorers. We cannot stay in one place." "Then what should we do if the pirates return?" Torres handed the alien a small communication device. "If you have trouble again, use this. It will send a message directly to human space. Someone will come." Kexvala held the device like it was made of precious metal. "Will it be you?" "Maybe, or maybe it will be someone else. But someone will come." As the Wanderer prepared to leave the system, Rodriguez approached his captain with a concerned expression. "Sir, I have been analyzing the pirate ship databases. These were not random attacks. The pirates have been operating in this sector for decades. They have raided dozens of mining operations, taken thousands of slaves, and, sir, according to their records, they were planning to hit 7 more mining operations this month. All of them are populated by peaceful species with no military capabilities. Torres considered this information for a long moment.
Rodriguez, how long would it take us to visit each of those mining operations?
Approximately 3 weeks, sir. But Captain, we are supposed to be exploring new systems, not hunting pirates. Sergeant Murphy, Torres called out. How many pirates escaped from the fight here? 47, sir, scattered across 4 different ships. And how many more mining operations are they planning to attack? 7, sir, Torres nodded slowly. Rodriguez set course for the next mining operation on their list. Maximum speed. Sir, what are our orders when we arrive there? Torres looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. Somewhere out there, peaceful miners were going about their work, unaware that predators were coming for them. But now those predators were being hunted by something worse. Our orders are to arrive before the pirates do, Torres said quietly. And when they show up expecting helpless prey, they will find something else waiting for them. Rodriguez smiled. Should I inform Earth Command of our change in mission parameters? No need, Torres replied. I think they will understand when they read our reports. The Wanderer jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Kepler mining station in peace. But across the sector, word was already spreading through the underground networks. The humans were coming, and they did not fight like other species. They hunted. Ambassador Kane stepped off the shuttle onto the main docking bay of the Council Central Station. The massive structure hung in space like a metallic flower, its petals extending for kilometers in every direction. This was the heart of galactic civilization, where representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered to make decisions that affected trillions of beings. Kane was the first official human ambassador to visit the station. Behind him walked Dr. Reeves, a quiet woman with sharp eyes who served as humanity's technical advisor. They had been invited to discuss Earth's potential membership in the Galactic Council. High Counselor Veltana greeted them in the main reception hall. She was a tall, elegant being with silver skin and forearms, representing the Thexani people who had founded the Council 2,000 years ago. Ambassador Kane, she said in perfectly translated English. Welcome to Council Central. We are honored to finally meet representatives of humanity. Kane bowed politely. The honor is ours, High Counselor. Earth is eager to join the galactic community. Excellent, Veltana replied. Please follow me to the main council chambers. We have prepared a special session to discuss your world's future. As they walked through the corridors, Kane noticed something odd. Security guards seemed to be stationed at every intersection, and there were more ships than usual visible through the station's windows. For a peaceful diplomatic meeting, there seemed to be a lot of military presence. The council chambers were impressive. Representatives from dozens of species sat in curved rows, all facing a central platform where Kane and Dr. Reeves were directed to stand. High Counselor Veltana took her position at the elevated podium. Honored representatives, Veltana announced. Today we consider the application of Earth for protected status within our galactic community. Kane frowned. I believe there has been some misunderstanding, High Counselor. We are here to discuss full membership, not protected status. Veltana smiled, but it was not a warm expression. Ambassador, after careful consideration of your species' capabilities and temperament, the Council has determined that full membership would not be appropriate at this time. What does protected status mean exactly? Dr. Reeves asked quietly. Another counselor, a reptilian being from the Scarlock Empire, stood to answer. Protected status means that Earth would become a ward of the Council. Your military would be disbanded, your technology would be monitored, and your interactions with other species would be supervised. For your own safety, of course. Kane felt his jaw tighten. And if we refuse this generous offer? That would be unfortunate, Veltana replied. You see, Ambassador, your species has demonstrated certain aggressive tendencies that concern us. The incident with Admiral Vextar's fleet, for example, and the reports we have received about human activities in the outer sectors. Through the chamber's windows, Kane could see more Council warships taking positions around the station. They were not hiding their intentions anymore. High Counselor, Kane said carefully. Are you threatening Earth? Not threatening, Veltana corrected. Protecting. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Ambassador. Your species needs guidance to survive among more advanced civilizations. Dr. Reeves stepped forward. May I ask how you plan to enforce this protection? The Council has assembled an enforcement fleet of 200 ships, the Scarlock representative announced proudly. More than enough to ensure compliance from any world, no matter how stubborn. Kane nodded slowly. I see. Dr. Reeves, perhaps you could show our hosts what we brought as a diplomatic gift. Dr. Reeves smiled and activated a small device she had been carrying. Of course, Ambassador. Nothing seemed to happen at first. Then alerts began sounding throughout the council chambers. The representatives looked around in confusion as their personal communication devices started malfunctioning. Display screens flickered and died. The lights dimmed and began strobing in random patterns. What is happening? Veltana demanded. Technical difficulties, Dr. Reeves replied innocently. You see, while we were traveling here, I took the liberty of studying council technology. Your computer systems are quite advanced, but they all share the same basic operating principles. More alarms were sounding now. Through the windows, Kane could see council warships drifting helplessly in space, their engines dark and their weapons powered down. What have you done? The Scarlock representative snarled. Nothing permanent, Dr. Reeves assured him. I have simply introduced some software modifications to your systems. Think of it as a demonstration of human technical capabilities. On the main display screen, which was flickering back to life, a tactical map of the system appeared. Every council ship was marked in red, indicating system failures. But now, new contacts were appearing on the edges of the display, ships jumping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The human fleet, Kane observed. Right on schedule. Veltana stared at the display in shock. How many ships is that? 50, Kane replied. A small escort fleet. We thought it would be rude to arrive at a diplomatic meeting without proper protection. But even as he spoke, more ships continued to appear on the display. 60, 70, 80. These were not exploration vessels like the Wanderer. These were purpose-built warships, sleek and deadly, taking positions throughout the system. This is impossible, Veltana whispered. Our intelligence reports indicated that Earth had no significant military fleet. Your intelligence reports were based on what we wanted you to see, Kane replied. Dr. Reeves, perhaps you could restore some functionality to their systems? I think our hosts would like to run some scans. As the council's sensors came back online, the representatives in the chamber fell silent. The human ships were not just numerous, they were advanced beyond anything in the council's databases. Energy readings that defied explanation, weapon signatures that made no sense according to known physics. How is this possible? Veltana demanded. Your species has only had spaceflight for decades. High Counselor, Kane said gently. Humanity has been preparing for this moment for much longer than you realize. We have been watching the galaxy, learning about your technology, your politics, your weaknesses. We wanted to be ready when we finally made contact. Dr. Reeves activated another function on her device. Suddenly, the Council's own weapons began targeting their ships. The representatives watched in horror as their enforcement fleet found itself looking down the barrels of their own guns. This is a demonstration, Kane announced to the chamber. We could have disabled your entire fleet permanently. We could have taken control of this station and held you all hostage. We could have announced our arrival by destroying half your military. But we did not, Dr. Reeves added, because we are not conquerors. We are explorers and protectors. We want to join the galactic community as equals, not as rulers or subjects. Veltana looked around at her fellow counselors. Many of them had gone pale. The Scarlock representative was openly shaking. What do you want? Veltana asked quietly. Full membership in the Galactic Council, Kane replied. Trade agreements. Cultural exchange. The right to travel freely throughout council space. The same rights and responsibilities as any other member species. And if we refuse? Kane considered this for a moment. Then we return to Earth and continue our expansion into the galaxy independently. Other species seem quite happy to work with us directly. The Velnari miners, for example, have been very appreciative of human protection services. Dr. Reeves checked her device. Ambassador, I am receiving reports that several council worlds have already sent independent diplomatic missions to Earth. They seem interested in establishing bilateral relationships outside of council oversight. Veltana closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she looked much older. You planned all of this. The timing, the demonstration, the political pressure. This was never really a negotiation, was it? Of course it was, Kane replied. You offered us vassal status. We declined and made a counteroffer. That is how negotiations work. And your counteroffer is? Full membership with all the rights and privileges thereof. In exchange, humanity offers its protection to Council space against external threats. We have been monitoring the border regions, High Counselor. The Devourer swarms are massing again. You will need our help sooner than you think. The chamber fell silent. The Devourers were a nightmare from the galaxy's past, an ancient enemy that had once consumed entire sectors before mysteriously vanishing into deep space. You know about the Devourers, Veltana whispered. We know about many things, Kane replied. The galaxy is full of dangers, High Counselor, but it is also full of friends if you know how to make them. Dr. Reeves began shutting down her device. Around the chamber, Council systems began returning to normal function. The human fleet in orbit powered down their weapons and took defensive positions around the station. I believe, Kane said formally, we have the basis for a very productive relationship. Dr. Reeves has prepared some trade proposals that I think you will find quite generous. High Counselor. Veltana looked out at the human ships surrounding her station, ships that had appeared from nowhere, and demonstrated capabilities that challenged everything the Council thought they knew about warfare and technology. Ambassador Kane, she said finally, I believe the Council would be honored to welcome humanity as a full member of our galactic community. Kane smiled. Excellent. Shall we discuss the details over dinner? I understand the station has an excellent restaurant with views of the nebula. As the Council representatives filed out of the chamber, many of them were already making private calls to their home worlds. The galaxy had changed today. A new player had entered the game and they played by rules that no one else fully understood. But one thing was becoming clear to everyone who witnessed the day's events. Humanity had not come to the galactic community as supplicants or conquerors. They had come as equals. And they had the strength to enforce that equality. The first reports came from the Outer Rim territories, mining colonies going silent, trading posts that simply stopped responding to communication attempts, scout ships sent to investigate that never returned. At first, the Galactic Council thought it was pirates or raiders. Such things happened in the frontier regions where law enforcement was thin. But as more reports flooded in, a horrifying pattern emerged. Entire star systems were going dark. Not just colonies or outposts, but everything. Planets, space stations, even the automated beacons that marked shipping lanes. Something was consuming the outer edge of Council space and moving inward. High Counselor Veltana stood in the emergency session chamber, looking at the holographic display that showed the known galaxy. Red zones marked where contact had been lost. The red was spreading like a disease, eating away at the blue regions that represented Council territory. The pattern is consistent with historical records, announced Dr. Kethmon, the Council's chief xenoarchaeologist. Energy signatures, attack patterns, the complete destruction of all technological infrastructure. This is not pirates or raiders. What is it then? Demanded General Thaxel of the Council Defense Force. Dr. Kethmon's forearms trembled as he accessed the ancient databases. The Devourers have returned. The chamber fell silent. Every species in the galaxy knew the stories. 1,000,000 years ago, the Devourers had swept across the galaxy like a plague of metal locusts. They consumed technology, absorbed energy, and left behind only empty space and dead worlds. The ancient civilizations had fought them for 10,000 years before the Devourers mysteriously vanished into the void between galaxies. Impossible, General Thaxel protested. The Devourers are a myth. Ancient stories to frighten children. The energy signatures do not lie, Dr. Kethmon replied grimly. They match the recordings from the archive worlds. The Devourers have returned, and they are following the same expansion pattern they used 1,000,000 years ago. Veltana studied the display. The red zones were spreading along major trade routes, consuming the most populated and technologically advanced systems first. At their current rate of expansion, they would reach the Council core worlds within 6 months. What are our options? She asked. General Thaxel activated his tactical displays. I have mobilized every available Council fleet, 2,000 ships from 40 different worlds. If we concentrate our forces at the Nexus system, we can make our stand there. And if we lose, then the galaxy falls. For 3 weeks, the greatest military force in galactic history assembled at the Nexus system. Ships of every design and configuration filled space around the massive strategic waypoint. Battle cruisers from the warrior worlds of Krondar, carrier fleets from the maritime Tethani. Even the mysterious shadow ships of the Umbral Collective had emerged from their hidden worlds to join the defense. But when the Devourers arrived, none of it mattered. The enemy fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of mechanical insects, ship-sized creatures that seemed to be part machine, part living organism. They moved with a coordination that no biological or artificial intelligence could match, as if they were all parts of a single vast mind. The battle lasted 4 hours. Council ships threw everything they had at the Devourer swarm: plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, gravity weapons, and technologies that bent the laws of physics. The Devourers absorbed it all. Every energy blast that struck them only seemed to make them stronger. When the surviving Council ships retreated in panic, leaving behind the wreckage of half their fleet, High Counselor Veltana finally understood why the ancient civilizations had failed. The Devourers did not just resist their weapons. They learned from them, adapted to them, became immune to them. "How many ships did we lose?" she asked quietly. "Over 1,000, General Thaxel reported. His voice was hollow with defeat. "The Devourers are moving again. They will reach the inner systems within days." Veltana looked around the emergency council chamber. Representatives from dozens of species sat in stunned silence. Many were already preparing evacuation fleets for their home worlds. "There is one option we have not considered," she said finally. "What option?" General Thaxel asked. "The humans." The chamber erupted in argument. Some counselors protested that humanity was too new to galactic politics to understand the threat. Others pointed out that even the combined council fleets had failed against the Devourers. What could one species do against an enemy that had consumed the galaxy 1,000,000 years ago? But Veltana remembered the demonstration in this very chamber. The human ships that had appeared from nowhere. The technology that made no sense according to known physics. The quiet confidence of Ambassador Kane when he spoke of external threats. "Send the message," she ordered. The transmission reached Earth 12 hours later. It was a formal plea for assistance from the highest authority in galactic civilization. A desperate request for help from beings who had, just months before, tried to force humanity into vassal status. The response came from General Morrison, Earth's military commander. His message was brief and direct. "We have been monitoring the situation. A human fleet is already en route to Council space. We will handle this." 6 days later, something emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Helix Nebula. The long-range sensors of the fleeing Council fleets detected the incoming vessels, and what they saw defied belief. The human fleet was unlike anything they had ever witnessed. Not just ships, but massive battle stations that dwarfed even the largest Council vessels. Structures that looked like they could crack planets. Weapons arrays that glowed with barely contained energy. Colonel Winters commanded the lead battle group from her flagship, a kilometer-long vessel that seemed to bend space around itself. Behind her came Admiral Cross with his carrier fleets, launching fighter craft that moved through space like living things. But it was not the size or number of human ships that shocked the Council observers. It was how they fought. The Devourers had never encountered anything like human warfare. Every previous civilization had fought them with energy weapons and high technology. The humans used different tactics entirely. They fought dirty. Human ships released clouds of metallic chaff that interfered with Devourer coordination. They deployed electromagnetic pulse weapons that scrambled the enemy's organic computer systems. When the Devourers adapted to energy weapons, the humans switched to kinetic projectiles. When the enemy learned to absorb those, the humans used gravity weapons that collapsed space itself. But the real difference was in the human approach to warfare. The Devourers had evolved to fight civilizations that valued honor and fair combat. Humans fought to win, no matter what it took. They targeted Devourer supply lines, cutting off the enemy's ability to feed on destroyed technology. They used the enemy's own strength against them, setting traps that turned Devourer weapons on each other. They fought not as individual ships, but as a single organism with billions of moving parts. The battle raged across 7 star systems. The humans never let the Devourers mass their forces or choose the battlefield. Every engagement was a running fight, with human ships appearing and vanishing like ghosts, striking at weak points and disappearing before the enemy could respond. And slowly, Impossibly, the Devourers began to lose. The turning point came at the Meridian system. Admiral Cross had lured the main Devourer fleet into pursuit of his carriers, making them think they had trapped the human forces in a dead-end system. But when the Devourers arrived, they found themselves surrounded by human battle stations that had been hidden in the system's asteroid belt. The weapons that emerged from those stations were not energy cannons or missile launchers. They were gravity manipulators that reached into the heart of the system's star and pulled stellar matter into space. The Devourers found themselves fighting not just human ships, but weaponized solar plasma and controlled stellar flares. The enemy fleet was annihilated in 20 minutes. Colonel Winters opened communication channels to the surviving Devourer forces scattered throughout the region. Her message was broadcast in frequencies that reached every Devourer ship in Council space. This is Colonel Winters of the Human Defense Force. You have one opportunity to withdraw from this galaxy immediately. Any Devourer forces remaining in Council space after 24 hours will be hunted down and destroyed. The response came from the Devourer hive mind itself, a voice that spoke in harmonics that hurt to hear. Impossible. We are the Devourers of worlds. We have consumed 1,000 galaxies. No species has ever defeated us. You have never faced humans before, Winters replied calmly. We are not like the species you have fought. We do not value honor over victory. We do not fight fair. We fight to protect what we love, and we will use any weapon, any tactic, any sacrifice necessary to win. We do not fear you. You should. What followed was not a battle, but an extermination. Human fleets pursued fleeing Devourer ships across half the galaxy. They tracked them to their hidden bases and destroyed them. They followed them into deep space and eliminated them in the void between stars. When it was over, the Devourer threat that had consumed galaxies for millions of years was gone. Not defeated, not driven away, but extinct. The last transmission from the Devourer hive mind was picked up by Council listening posts 3 days after the final battle. It was a single word, broadcast on all frequencies as their last ship died in the cold of interstellar space. Monsters, High Counselor Veltana received the report in her private chambers. The galaxy was safe. The ancient nightmare was over. Humanity had accomplished in 3 weeks what the greatest civilizations in galactic history had failed to do in 10,000 years. She composed a formal message of gratitude to Earth, thanking them for their assistance and offering any reward the Council could provide. The response from General Morrison was typically human in its brevity. No reward necessary. We were happy to help. The galaxy is our neighborhood now. We protect our neighborhood. 2 years had passed since the Devourer War ended. The galaxy was rebuilding, and the Galactic Council had settled into a new normal. Trade routes reopened, colonies were re-established, and life resumed its steady pace across 1,000 worlds. But something had changed fundamentally in the balance of power. President Mason sat in her office overlooking the Pacific Ocean, reading reports from across human space. Earth's influence had grown far beyond what anyone had expected. Not through conquest or political manipulation, but through something much simpler. People trusted humans now. Madam President, Director Hayes announced as he entered her office. The Council has made another offer. Mason looked up from her reports. Let me guess. They want us to take over galactic defense permanently. Actually, they are offering to make humanity the senior partner in the Council itself. Full administrative control over military operations and interspecies relations. Mason shook her head. Same answer as last time, Director. We are not interested in ruling the galaxy. I know, but I think you should see what else is happening out there. Hayes activated the holographic display in the center of the office. The three-dimensional map showed the known galaxy, with different colors representing various political entities. But scattered throughout Council space were small blue dots that had not been there 2 years ago. Human Advisory Corps stations, Hayes explained. We now have small teams on 400 different worlds. I approved maybe 50 of those stations, Mason said with a frown. The others were requested by local governments. Apparently having humans nearby makes people feel safer. Mason studied the display more carefully. The blue dots were not randomly distributed. They formed a network that covered most of the major trade routes and population centers in Council space. What exactly are our people doing at these stations? Hayes pulled up a series of reports. Officially, cultural exchange and technical assistance. Unofficially, they serve as early warning systems and rapid response coordinators. Rapid response to what? Everything. Pirate raids, natural disasters, diplomatic crises, trade disputes. Local governments contact our stations when they have problems they cannot solve themselves. Mason was beginning to understand. And our people help solve these problems? They coordinate solutions. Agent Parker on the Velnari mining station helped organize a mutual defense pact between 6 different mining operations. Lieutenant Foster at the Tethani Colony World assisted in developing new agricultural techniques that increased crop yields by 40%. Captain Walsh at the Frontier Trading Post has been mediating territorial disputes between 3 different species. None of this was in their mission parameters. No, but it is what they are good at. Humans excel at solving problems, Madam President, and word spreads quickly when someone is genuinely helpful. Mason walked to the window and looked out at the ocean. Somewhere up there, beyond the blue sky, human advisors were scattered across the galaxy, quietly making life better for billions of beings who had never even seen Earth. What about the military situation? She asked. Hayes brought up a different display. This one showed threat assessments and incident reports from across Council space. Crime rates have dropped 60% in systems with human advisory stations. Pirate activity has virtually disappeared from major shipping lanes. Several organized crime syndicates have simply disbanded rather than risk human attention. Are our people actively fighting crime? Not exactly. But criminals have learned that attacking civilians in systems under human protection has consequences. Remember the slavers who tried to raid the Kethani refugee camp? Mason did remember. The slavers had disappeared completely. Their ships were found drifting empty in deep space with no trace of what had happened to the crews. The official report said it was likely equipment failure, but everyone knew better. The galaxy is becoming a safer place, Hayes continued. Not because we are policing it, but because bad actors know we are watching. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Mason's secretary announced that Ambassador Kane was calling from Council Central Station. Madam President, Kane's voice filled the office. I thought you should know about the latest development here. What now, Ambassador? The Scarlock Empire has formally requested human mediation in their border dispute with the Kethani Republic. Apparently both sides trust us, to be fair, Mason sighed. Marcus, we are not galactic peacekeepers, I told them that. But they pointed out that humans have never taken sides in interspecies conflicts. We help everyone equally, so everyone trusts us to be neutral. And what did you tell them? That I would consult with Earth and provide an answer within the week. Mason looked at Hayes, who was trying not to smile. How many other mediation requests are pending? 17, Kane replied. Including one from the Council itself. They want human input on the new trade regulations they are developing. After Kane signed off, Mason returned to her desk and pulled up the latest intelligence reports. The picture they painted was consistent with what Hayes had been telling her. The galaxy was indeed becoming more stable, but not because of any grand human strategy. It was happening because humans were simply being human. They helped when asked. They protected the innocent. They solved problems without expecting reward, and most importantly, they kept their word. Director, Mason said finally, I want a full review of all our advisory stations, not to shut them down, but to understand what we have accidentally created out there. I think I can save you some time, Hayes replied. What we have created is a network of trust. Every human advisor becomes a local expert on their assigned region. They understand the politics, the economics, the cultural tensions. When problems arise, they know exactly who to contact and how to coordinate solutions. And the military implications? If anyone tries to threaten Council space again, we will know about it within hours. Our advisory network has better intelligence coverage than the Council's own spy services. Mason considered this. Earth had never intended to become the galaxy's guardian. They had simply wanted to explore space and make friends with other civilizations. But somewhere along the way, they had become something more. Madam President, Hayes said quietly, there is one more thing you should know. What? 3 more species have applied for Council membership in the past month. All of them specifically requested human advisors to help with their integration process. Why? Because they have heard that humans make excellent neighbors. Mason laughed despite herself. We set out to explore the galaxy and ended up adopting it. Is that necessarily a bad thing? Before Mason could answer, another priority message arrived. This one was from the Deep Space Monitoring Station at the edge of Council territory. "Madam President," came the voice of Station Commander Price. "We are detecting unusual energy signatures from the galactic edge. Something large is approaching Council space." Mason felt her stomach tighten. Another invasion? Unknown. But whatever it is moving fast and it is big. Very big. Hayes was already activating emergency protocols. "I will alert all our advisory stations to begin evacuation preparations." "Wait," Mason said. "Commander Price, are you detecting any hostile intent from these signatures?" "Negative, Madam President. In fact, we are starting to receive what appears to be a communication signal." "Put it through." The voice that filled the office spoke in heavily accented galactic standard, with the formal tones of official diplomacy. "This is the hegemony of the far spiral, requesting permission to enter Council space. We have traveled far to meet the species known as humans. We have heard remarkable stories about your people, and we wish to establish diplomatic relations." Mason looked at Hayes, who was checking the deep space sensor readings. "How far is the far spiral?" "According to our star charts, approximately 8 million light-years away. They traveled across intergalactic space to get here. Why would anyone travel that far just to meet us?" Hayes pulled up the communication logs from the past 2 years. Messages sent by traders, diplomats, explorers, and refugees who had encountered humans. Stories shared across the galaxy and beyond. Because word spreads, Madam President. The galaxy is full of predators and victims, conquerors and subjects, rulers and servants. But humans are something different. We are protectors who ask for nothing in return. We are helpers who expect no reward. We are friends who keep our promises. And now everyone wants to be our neighbor? It appears so. Mason looked out at the ocean again, thinking about the small blue planet that had somehow become the center of galactic civilization. Not through conquest or politics, but through simple human decency. "Commander Price," she said into the communication system, "inform the hegemony that they are welcome in Council space, and ask them to bring their problems with them." "Their problems, Madam President? Anyone who travels 8 million light-years to ask for help clearly has problems that need solving. And humans are good at solving problems." As the day continued, more reports came in from across the galaxy. Peaceful resolutions to ancient conflicts, new technologies shared freely between species, trade agreements that benefited everyone involved, cultural exchanges that brought understanding between worlds that had been enemies for millennia. The galaxy was becoming something it had never been before. Not a collection of competing empires and suspicious civilizations, but a community, a neighborhood where everyone looked out for everyone else, and at the center of it all were humans. Not as rulers or conquerors, but as the friends everyone wanted to have, the neighbors everyone trusted, the protectors who slept with one eye open, watching the dark between the stars for any threat to their adopted family. President Mason smiled as she read the latest reports. Earth had set out to find its place in the galaxy. Instead, the galaxy had found its way home. But in the deep spaces between galaxies, ancient things stirred. Beings older than time itself, who had been sleeping for eons, began to take notice of the small galaxy where something new was happening, something that had never existed before in their countless years of existence. A species that fought not for conquest, but for protection, not for glory, but for justice, not for themselves, but for others. And in the darkness, they began to plan their response to this anomaly called humanity. The galaxy was safe for now, but beyond the edge of known space, new challenges were awakening. And when they came, the galaxy would need its monsters more than ever. The humans would be ready. The planet Kepler was dying. Commander Vera stood in the control room deep underground, watching the screens that showed her world burning above. The enemy ships filled the sky like dark clouds, dropping bombs that turned cities into dust and ash. Her people, the Nexari, had been fighting the Corlin Empire for 3 months. The Corlins wanted their planet because it had rare metals that could power faster than light engines. They did not care that millions of innocent people lived here. "How many ships do they have up there now?" Vera asked her officer. 250, Commander. Maybe more coming." The young man's voice shook with fear. "Our defense fleet is gone. We have maybe 6 ships left that can still fly." Vera closed her eyes. She was only 35 years old, but she felt ancient. The weight of her entire species rested on her shoulders. In the past week, she had watched half her people die. The lucky ones died quickly in the bombing. Others starved in the ruins or died slowly from radiation poisoning. "Commander, we are getting reports from the surface," another officer called out. "The Corlans have started landing troops in the northern cities. They are not taking prisoners." Vera knew what that meant. The Corlans did not want slaves or workers. They wanted the planet empty so they could strip mine it without dealing with the local population. This was not war anymore. This was genocide. "Sir, what are your orders?" her communications officer asked. Vera looked around the bunker. These 50 people were some of the last military personnel left alive on Kepler. Outside this underground base, maybe 1,000,000 Nexari still lived in hiding, scattered across a world that was rapidly becoming uninhabitable. She walked to the long-range communications array. This was their most powerful transmitter, capable of sending signals across hundreds of light years. They had been saving power for weeks, hoping they would not need to use it. "Open a channel on all frequencies," she ordered. "Send it to every star system within 1,000 light years." "Commander, that will use most of our remaining power," the officer warned. "Do it." Vera took a deep breath and began recording. She spoke in the common trade language that most spacefaring species understood. "This is Commander Vera of the Nexari Republic on the planet Kepler. Our world is under attack by the Corlan Empire. They are committing genocide against our people. We are a peaceful species. We have never attacked anyone. We have technology and knowledge to share. We will give everything we have to whoever can help us. Please, if anyone receives this message, we are begging for help. Our children are dying. Our cities are burning. We do not have long." She ended the recording and looked at her communications officer. "Send it now. Keep sending it every hour until our power runs out." The message went out into the darkness of space, traveling at light speed toward distant stars. Vera did not know if anyone would hear it. She did not know if anyone would care. But it was their last hope. For 6 days, nothing happened. The Corlan bombing continued. More cities fell. The underground bunker grew quieter as people died from their wounds or simply gave up hope. On the 7th day, their communications array picked up an incoming signal. It was weak but clear. "Nexari Republic, this is Captain Thompson of the Earth Fleet. We received your distress call. We are coming to help." Everyone in the bunker stopped what they were doing. Vera felt her heart jump in her chest. "Earth?" she whispered. She had never heard of this planet or species in all her years of studying galactic politics. "Send a reply. Tell them our coordinates and ask how long until they arrive." The answer came back quickly. "We will reach your system in 2 days. Hold on. Help is coming." For the first time in months, people in the bunker smiled. Children who had been too scared to speak began laughing. The adults hugged each other and cried tears of joy. But Vera felt uneasy. Something bothered her about the message, though she could not figure out what. Maybe it was because she had never heard of these humans before. In all her diplomatic training, she had studied every major spacefaring civilization in this part of the galaxy. Earth was not in any of her files. "Commander," her intelligence officer said quietly, pulling her aside. "I ran a search through our databases. There is no record of any planet called Earth or any species called humans." "Maybe they are from far away," Vera suggested, but she did not sound convinced. "Maybe. But Commander, I also analyzed the transmission. The signal came from the Keth system, only 3 light years away. If they were already that close, why did they not help us sooner? And how did they get there so fast after receiving our message?" Vera felt cold suddenly. The Keth system was empty except for a few dead planets and some asteroids. At least that was what their star charts said. But those charts were 50 years old. "Keep monitoring all channels," she ordered, "and start powering up our remaining defense systems." "Defense systems? But Commander, they are coming to help us." "I hope so," Vera said quietly. "But something does not feel right." That night Vera could not sleep. She kept thinking about the message from Earth. The voice had been calm, almost friendly, but there was something else in it. Something she could not identify. She went to the communications room where one officer was still on duty, monitoring the signals from space. "Any more messages from the humans?" "Yes, Commander. They sent coordinates for a meeting point in orbit. They want to discuss strategy before engaging the Corlans." "What did you tell them?" "I confirmed the meeting." "Was that wrong?" Before Vera could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the bunker. The officer at the sensor station shouted, "Commander! New ships entering the system! Large fleet, unknown design." Vera ran to the tactical display. Dozens of ships had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the edge of their solar system. They were not like any ships she had ever seen. They were dark, angular, and moved through space with predatory grace. "Are those the humans?" someone asked. "I think so," Vera replied, but her voice was full of doubt. On the display, they watched as the human ships spread out and began moving toward the inner system, where the Corlin fleet waited. But their formation was strange. Instead of the organized battle lines that most civilizations used, the human ships moved like a pack of hunting animals surrounding prey. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission from the Corlin flagship," the communications officer announced. "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was harsh and mechanical, translated from the Corlan language. "Nexari Command, what have you done? What are these ships? Our sensors cannot identify them, but their weapon signatures are unlike anything in our databases." Vera felt her stomach drop. If the Corlans, with their advanced military technology, could not identify the human ships, what did that mean? "Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Kex of the Corlin Empire. Identify yourselves and state your intentions." The human response came on an open channel that everyone could hear. The voice was still calm and friendly, but somehow it sounded different now, colder. "This is Captain Thompson. We are here to assist the Nexari. We suggest you leave this system immediately. We will not be driven off by unknown aliens. This system is now under Corlin control." There was a pause. Then Captain Thompson spoke again, and this time Vera could hear something in his voice that made her blood freeze. "We were hoping you would say that." Admiral Kex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, and watched the human ships move through space. He had commanded fleets for 40 years and conquered dozens of worlds, but he had never seen anything like this. The human vessels moved without formation or order, yet somehow they coordinated perfectly. They flowed around his ships like water, striking and retreating before his gunners could lock onto them. Their weapons were crude compared to Corlan technology, but they used them with deadly efficiency. "Admiral, the cruiser Steel Fang is reporting critical damage," his tactical officer announced. "The humans are not just attacking their weapons and engines. They are targeting life support systems." Kex watched his tactical display with growing alarm. A human ship barely the size of a Corlin destroyer had somehow gotten inside his battle line. Instead of engaging the larger ships, it was hunting down the smaller support vessels one by one. But it was not destroying them quickly. It was disabling them, leaving the crews to suffocate slowly in the darkness of space. "Sir, the humans are jamming our communications with the surface," another officer reported. "We cannot coordinate with our ground forces. What about retreat coordinates? Can we signal for backup from the home fleet?" "Negative, sir. They seem to know exactly which frequencies to jam." This troubled Kex more than anything else. How did these unknown aliens know so much about Corlin military communications? It was as if they had been studying his people for years. On the planet's surface, Major Rex led a squad of Corlan soldiers through the ruins of what had once been a Nexari city. They had been hunting for survivors when the human ships arrived. Now they were cut off from their orbital support, alone on a hostile world. "Major, we have movement in the building ahead," one of his men reported. Rex raised his weapon and approached carefully. The Corlins were not cruel by nature, but they followed orders. Their empire needed this planet's resources, and the Nexari were in the way. It was simple business, but what emerged from the building was not a Nexari. It was something Rex had never seen before. The creature walked on two legs like a Nexari, but it was taller and broader. Its skin was pale, and it wore armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Most disturbing were its eyes, small, dark, and completely without emotion. "Unknown being," Rex called out in the trade language. "Identify yourself." The creature tilted its head slightly as if Rex had said something amusing. When it spoke, its voice was calm and pleasant, which somehow made it more frightening. "I am Sergeant Williams of the Earth Marine Corps. You are trespassing on Nexari territory. This world belongs to the Corlin Empire by right of conquest," Rex replied, trying to sound confident. The humans seemed to consider this. "Conquest implies victory. You have not won yet." Rex noticed that more humans were emerging from the ruins around them. They moved silently, positioning themselves with practiced efficiency. His squad was surrounded, though they had not heard or seen the humans approach. "We outnumber you 3-1, Rex said, gesturing to his soldiers. "Numbers are not everything," Williams replied. He made a subtle gesture and suddenly Rex's men began dropping to the ground. The humans had been using some kind of silent weapon. In seconds, only Rex remained standing. "You killed them," Rex whispered. Williams looked down at the fallen Corlins without interest. "No tranquilizer darts. We prefer to take prisoners when possible." Rex felt relief flood through him. These humans might be warriors, but they followed the civilized rules of war. "Then you will treat us according to the Galactic Convention on—" "I said we prefer to take prisoners," Williams interrupted. "I did not say we always do." The human pulled out a small device and spoke into it. "Command, this is Bravo Squad. We have captured a Corlin officer. Requesting instructions," a voice came back immediately. "Are there any Nexari civilians in the area?" Williams looked around at the empty ruins. "Negative. Area appears clear of friendlies." "Then clean up and move on to the next sector." Williams put the device away and looked at Rex with those cold, emotionless eyes. "You understand, Major. Orders are orders." Rex tried to run, but the tranquilizer was already taking effect. The last thing he saw was Williams pulling out a different weapon, this one definitely not designed to take prisoners. In the underground bunker, Commander Vera watched the battle through their remaining surveillance systems. The human ships had destroyed or disabled most of the Corlin fleet in less than 6 hours. It should have been cause for celebration, but something was very wrong. "Commander, we are receiving a communication from Captain Thompson," her communications officer announced. "Put him through." Thompson's voice came through the speakers, still calm and friendly. "Commander Vera, I am pleased to report that we have eliminated the Corlin threat to your planet. Our ground forces are currently securing the remaining enemy positions." "Thank you, Captain. We cannot express our gratitude enough. When can we meet to discuss?" "Actually, Commander, I need to discuss some practical matters with you. May I suggest we meet in person? I can send a transport to your location." Vera hesitated. Something in Thompson's voice made her nervous. "That is very kind, but perhaps it would be better if we met at a neutral location. Our capital city has a landing pad that survived the bombing." There was a pause. "I am afraid that would not be convenient. Our forces are still clearing hostile elements from the surface. It would be much safer if you came to our ship." "Hostile elements? I thought you said you had eliminated the Corlin threat." Another pause, longer this time. "There are always stragglers, Commander. Isolated units that refuse to surrender. Nothing for you to worry about." Vera looked around the bunker at her officers. They all looked as confused as she felt. "Captain, perhaps we could arrange a video communication first. I would like to see who we are dealing with." "Unfortunately, our communication systems are not compatible for video transmission. But do not worry, Commander. You have nothing to fear from us. We are here to help." After the transmission ended, Vera called her senior staff together. "What do you think?" "I do not like it," her security chief said immediately. "Why are they so eager to get you alone on their ship? And why no video?" "Every spacefaring species has compatible video systems." Her intelligence officer had been analyzing intercepted communications. "Commander, I have been monitoring transmissions between the human ships. They are using encryption I cannot break. But I did notice something interesting. They are referring to our planet by a designation number, not by its name." "What do you mean?" "They call it Harvest Site 247. The room fell silent. Vera felt cold fear creep up her spine. "Harvest Site?" "That is not all, Commander. I managed to intercept part of a transmission to what seems to be their home command. They mentioned something about acceptable population levels and processing facilities." Vera's hands began to shake. "What kind of processing?" "I do not know. But Commander, there is something else. I traced the origin of their ship's transponder codes. They did not come from some distant star system. According to their own navigation data, they have been in this sector for at least 6 months." "6 months?" Vera's voice was barely a whisper. "But that means they were here before the Corlins attacked," her intelligence officer confirmed. "In fact, if I am reading this data correctly, they were in communication with the Corlin fleet before the invasion began." The truth hit Vera like a physical blow. The humans had not come to rescue them. They had watched the Corlins destroy her world and waited for the perfect moment to intervene. But why? Her communications officer suddenly looked up from his station. "Commander, we have incoming transports. 3 human ships are heading directly for our location. How did they find us?" "I do not know. Our location is supposed to be secret." Vera looked at the tactical display. The human transports were only minutes away. Evacuate the bunker. All personnel to emergency exits. Move now. As alarms blared and people ran for the exits, Vera stayed at her command post for one last transmission. She opened a channel on all frequencies and began broadcasting. This is Commander Vera of the Nixari Republic. If anyone receives this message, do not trust the humans. They are not rescuers. They were here before the attack. They let our people die. I do not know what they want, but the transmission was cut off as the bunker's power systems failed. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting strange shadows on the walls. Through the bunker's remaining cameras, Vera could see human soldiers entering through the main entrance. They moved with the same predatory efficiency she had noticed in their ships. As she ran toward the emergency exit, she heard Captain Thompson's voice echoing through the corridors, no longer calm and friendly. Attention, Nixari personnel. Do not attempt to flee. We are here to help you transition to your new status. Resistance will only make this more difficult. Vera reached the emergency exit and looked back one last time at the bunker that had been her home for months. Human soldiers were systematically moving through each room, searching for something or someone. She sealed the exit behind her and disappeared into the ruined landscape of her world, knowing that her real fight was just beginning. 2 weeks had passed since the humans arrived on Kepler. Commander Vera hid in the ruins of the old mining complex, surviving on emergency rations and rainwater. From her hiding place, she could see the changes happening to her world. The humans worked fast. They had cleared the rubble from the main cities and built new structures, clean, efficient buildings that looked more like factories than homes. Large transports landed every day, bringing supplies and taking away cargo that Vera could not identify from this distance. Her people, the survivors of the Corlin attack, had been gathered into what the humans called relocation centers. These were compounds surrounded by tall fences, with guards at every gate. The humans said it was for protection while they rebuilt the cities, but Vera noticed that the fences were designed to keep people in, not to keep threats out. She had managed to contact a few other survivors who were still in hiding. They called themselves the Free Nixari, though there were fewer than 100 of them scattered across the planet. Most of her people had gone willingly to the relocation centers, grateful for food and shelter after months of war. Dr. Nolan was one of the few who had escaped from a relocation center. He found Vera 3 days ago, thin and frightened with stories that made no sense. They are not hurting anyone, he insisted, as they sat in the abandoned mine shaft that served as their base. The food is good, the shelters are warm, and they provide medical care. But Vera, something is wrong with the medical examinations. What do you mean? They are very thorough. Blood tests, tissue samples, genetic scans, far more detailed than necessary for basic health checks. And they are particularly interested in anyone with unusual traits. Vera knew what he meant. The Nixari were not all identical. Some had enhanced strength, others had better eyesight or faster reflexes. These differences had helped their species survive on a harsh world for thousands of years. They asked me many questions about my family history, Dr. Nolan continued. Who my parents were, how many children they had, what abilities ran in our bloodline. When I asked why they needed this information, they said it was for genetic diversity records. Maybe they want to help us rebuild our population after the war. Maybe. But Vera, I saw the laboratory they built in the center of each compound. The equipment they brought is not for healing people. It is for breaking them down into component parts. Before Vera could ask what he meant, their communications officer, a young woman named Rita, came running into the mine shaft. Commander, you need to hear this. I intercepted a transmission between the human ships in orbit. She played the recording on a small device. The voices were calm and professional, discussing numbers and statistics like accountants reviewing a business report. Captain Thompson to Earth Command. Phase 1 complete. Population secured and cataloged. Total count 800,000 survivors. Excellent work, Captain. What is the breakdown by genetic classification? Approximately 60,000 Type A specimens with enhanced physical capabilities. 120,000 Type B with superior sensory functions. The remainder are standard baseline, suitable for processing. Processing, Vera whispered. The recording continued. Any resistance from the local population? Minimal. They believe we are helping them recover from the Corlin attack. However, we have identified several groups of holdouts in the wilderness. Recommend we begin Phase 2 before they organize effective opposition. Agreed. Begin harvesting operations immediately. Start with the elderly and infirm. They will not be missed as quickly. The transmission ended. Vera sat in stunned silence, trying to process what she had heard. What does harvesting mean? Dr. Nolan asked quietly. Their answer came the next morning. Rita had positioned herself on a hill overlooking the nearest relocation center with a pair of binoculars. She came back white-faced and shaking. They took them during the night, she reported. About 200 people, mostly the old ones and those who were sick or injured. They loaded them onto transports and flew them to the industrial complex the humans built. What happens at the industrial complex? Vera asked, though she dreaded the answer. I do not know. But Commander, I watched the transports leave. They went up to the human ships in orbit, not to another location on the surface. Vera felt sick. Get me a long-range transmitter. I need to contact the other survivor groups. It took them 2 days to set up communication with the scattered free Nexari cells across the planet. What Vera learned made her realize the true scope of what was happening. The humans had established 12 relocation centers across Kepler. Each one housed between 50,000 and 100,000 Nexari survivors. Every night transports would arrive and take away groups of people. The humans always had explanations: medical treatment, work assignments, relocation to better facilities. But none of those people ever came back. How many? Vera asked her communications team after they had compiled all the reports. Based on the numbers from all the centers, approximately 200,000 people have been taken in the past 2 weeks, Rita replied. That is a quarter of all the survivors. Dr. Nolan had been studying the data with growing horror. Vera, look at this pattern. They are not taking people randomly. They are selecting specific genetic types first. The elderly, the sick, the disabled. People who would be least useful for manual labor. You think they are killing them? I think they are studying them. Learning about Nexari biology before they move on to the healthy population. That night, Vera made a decision that would change everything. We are going to infiltrate one of the relocation centers. I need to see what is really happening to our people. That is suicide, Commander, Dr. Nolan protested. The humans have detailed records of everyone they have captured. They will recognize us immediately. Not if we pretend to be survivors just coming out of hiding. Refugees looking for help. Rita looked terrified. What if we are wrong? What if they really are trying to help? Vera thought about the intercepted transmissions, the missing people, the industrial complex that operated only at night. Then we will apologize and be grateful. But if we are right, she did not finish the sentence. They all knew what it meant. The next morning, Vera and 2 volunteers approached the gates of Relocation Center 7. They had made themselves look like survivors, dirty, hungry, desperate for help. The human guards at the gate were polite and efficient. Welcome, one of them said with a smile that did not reach his eyes. You are safe now. Please follow the yellow line to processing. The processing center was a clean white building filled with medical equipment. Vera and her companions were separated immediately and taken to different examination rooms. A human doctor wearing surgical scrubs and gloves began asking questions while drawing blood samples. How long were you hiding? He asked in a friendly voice. 2 weeks, Vera lied. We ran when the bombing started and have been living in the ruins ever since. And your family? Are there others with you? Dead. All dead in the Corlin attack. The doctor made notes on his tablet while machines analyzed her blood. I am sorry for your loss, but you are safe now. We will take good care of you. As he worked, Vera noticed something that made her blood freeze. On the doctor's desk was a tablet displaying what looked like a catalog. She could only see part of it, but the entries looked like product listings. Nexari Type A, Enhanced Strength Variant, suitable for labor applications. Organ harvesting, genetic material extraction. Nexari Type B, Enhanced Sensory Variant, high value for neural tissue processing. Optical component utilization. Nexari Standard Baseline. General purpose biological materials. Moderate commercial value. What is that? She asked, pointing at the tablet. The doctor looked where she was pointing and quickly turned the tablet face down. Just medical records. Nothing for you to worry about. But it was too late. Vera had seen enough to understand what the humans were really doing on Kepler. They had not come to rescue the Nexari from the Corlan invasion. They had come to harvest them. That evening, as she sat in the dormitory with hundreds of other Nexari refugees, Vera began to plan. The humans had made one mistake. They assumed that a species desperate for salvation would not question their saviors too closely. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Around her, families hugged their children and spoke in quiet voices about their hopes for the future. They believed they were safe. They trusted the humans who had saved them from the Corlins. Vera knew she had to find a way to warn them before it was too late. But first she needed to discover exactly what happened to the 200,000 people who had already been taken away in the night. The answer to that question would determine whether the Nexari had any future at all. Commander Vera had been inside Relocation Center 7 for 5 days when she discovered the truth about the night transports. She had volunteered for kitchen duty, hoping to learn more about the center's operations. What she found was worse than anything she had imagined. Late one evening, while cleaning dishes after dinner, she noticed unusual activity near the medical wing. Human guards were moving through the dormitories with clipboards, quietly waking specific people and asking them to come for routine health checkups. Vera recognized the pattern immediately. The people being selected were the same ones who had scored highest on the medical examinations, those with unique genetic traits that made them valuable to the humans. She followed at a distance as the selected Nexari were led to a section of the medical wing she had never seen before. Through a partially open door, she glimpsed something that made her stomach turn. The room beyond looked like a factory assembly line, but instead of manufacturing products, it was processing people. Nexari were strapped to tables while human technicians worked with surgical precision. Some were having organs removed. Others were being drained of blood and other biological fluids. A few were having tissue samples taken from every part of their bodies. None of them were conscious, but Vera could see they were still alive. The humans were keeping them alive while systematically harvesting everything useful from their bodies. At the end of the assembly line, what remained of her people was loaded onto automated gurneys and wheeled away. Vera did not want to think about where those gurneys led. She crept back to the dormitories, her hands shaking and her mind racing. She had to get word to the other survivors, but the humans monitored all communications within the center. Any attempt to warn people would be detected immediately. The next morning brought a new horror. Captain Thompson himself arrived at the center for an inspection. Vera watched from across the dining hall as he met with the facility administrator, Dr. Pierce. "How are our collection numbers?" Thompson asked, reviewing data on a tablet. "Excellent, Captain. We are processing approximately 300 units per week from this facility alone. The quality is exceptional. Nexari biological materials are proving even more valuable than our initial projections." Thompson nodded with satisfaction. "Earth Command is very pleased. The pharmaceutical companies are particularly interested in Nexari neural tissue. Apparently it has properties that could extend human lifespan by decades." "What about the resistance cells still hiding in the wilderness?" Dr. Pierce asked, a minor concern. "Our orbital scanners have identified most of their locations. We will round them up once we finish processing the current population. No point in rushing, they are not going anywhere." Vera felt cold fury building inside her chest. The humans were discussing her people like cattle being prepared for slaughter. But then she overheard something that changed everything. "Captain, I have a question about the long-term sustainability of this operation," Dr. Pierce continued. "At our current processing rate, we will have harvested the entire Nexari population within 6 months.
What happens then?"
Thompson smiled, and the expression was more frightening than any weapon. "Dr. Pierce, you are thinking too small. Kepler was just a test run. We have identified 47 other worlds with similar populations and resource potential. Each one will provide years of sustainable harvesting. 47 worlds. The galaxy is full of species willing to send out distress calls when they face extinction. All we have to do is make sure they face extinction at the right time." "You mean you arrange the attacks?" "Sometimes we encourage existing conflicts. Sometimes we provide weapons to the more aggressive species. Sometimes we simply wait for natural disasters or civil wars. The key is timing our rescue operations for maximum desperation and gratitude." Vera realized she was witnessing the explanation of humanity's entire strategy. They were not conquerors who took worlds by force. They were predators who manipulated other species into asking for help, then harvested them while posing as saviors. "What about the Corlins?" Dr. Pierce asked. What about them? They served their purpose by softening up the Nexari population. Now they are no longer useful to us. So they do not know they were working for us? Thompson laughed, a sound completely without warmth. The Corlans think they discovered this world independently. They have no idea we guided them here, or that we were feeding them intelligence about Nexari defenses. They believe they lost this world to unknown aliens who appeared from nowhere. Will you eliminate them as well? Eventually. Corlan biology is less interesting than Nexari, but their warrior culture has produced some fascinating genetic adaptations. We will harvest them when it becomes convenient. Vera had heard enough. She slipped away from the dining hall and began making her way toward the facility's communication center. She had to find a way to warn not just the Nexari, but every species in the galaxy about what humanity was really doing. But as she crept through the corridors, she noticed increased security. Human guards were positioned at every intersection, and there were more technicians working in the medical wing than usual. She ducked into an empty storage room and nearly screamed at what she found there. The room was filled with containers labeled with Nexari names and identification numbers. Inside the containers were organs, tissue samples, and biological materials packed in preservation fluids. A shipping manifest on the wall showed destinations across human space. Hospitals, research facilities, pharmaceutical companies, all eagerly awaiting their shipments of Nexari biological products. At the bottom of the manifest was a note that made Vera's blood freeze. Special order for Earth Prime Medical Center, 1,000 complete. Nexari cardiovascular systems for transplant research. Rush delivery requested, 1,000 hearts. The humans were planning to harvest the hearts from 1,000 of her people for medical experiments. Vera realized that she was looking at the future of her entire species. Not death, but something worse. Eternal slavery as a source of spare parts for human medicine. She photographed the manifest with a small device she had managed to hide from the guards, then began working her way toward the communication center. She had to get this information to the free Nexari cells hiding in the wilderness, but when she reached the communication center, she found it heavily guarded. 2 human soldiers stood outside the door, and she could see more inside through the windows. As she watched, trying to figure out how to get past the guards, she saw something that filled her with hope. Rita, her former communications officer, was among a group of new arrivals being processed for entry into the center. Rita had been caught. But more importantly, Rita would know how to operate the communication equipment, and she would understand the importance of what Vera had discovered. That night, Vera made contact with Rita during the evening meal. Using a code they had developed during their resistance activities, she passed along the key information about what she had learned. Rita's face went pale as she absorbed the details, but she nodded understanding. They would need to work together to get word to the outside galaxy. But time was running out. Vera had noticed increased activity in the medical wing, and more transports were arriving every night. The humans were accelerating their harvesting operations. Looking around the dining hall at the hundreds of Nexari families eating their dinner and talking quietly about their hopes for rebuilding their world, Vera felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on her. These people trusted the humans who had saved them from the Corlans. They had no idea that their saviors were planning to systematically dismantle them for spare parts. But, worse than that was the knowledge that this same scenario was playing out or would play out on 47 other worlds. Hundreds of millions of beings across the galaxy were being set up for harvest by predators who presented themselves as rescuers. Tomorrow night, she and Rita would attempt to break into the communication center and broadcast a warning to every world within range. It was probably a suicide mission, but it was the only chance to prevent humanity from turning the entire galaxy into their personal hunting preserve. As she watched human guards patrol the perimeter of the center with the casual confidence of farmers checking their livestock, Vera made herself a promise. Even if she died in the attempt, the galaxy would learn the truth about Earth's rescue operations. The monsters would not be allowed to hide behind the mask of salvation any longer. The communication center raid was planned for 3 in the morning, when most of the human guards would be changing shifts. Commander Vera and Rita had spent 2 days studying the patrol patterns and identifying the brief window when security would be lightest. But when the time came, they discovered they were not the only ones with plans for that night. As they crept through the corridors toward the communication center, they heard sounds of activity from the medical wing. Through the windows, they could see human technicians preparing for what looked like their largest harvesting operation yet. They are taking too many people, Rita whispered as they watched dozens of Nexari being wheeled into the processing rooms. At this rate, half the population of the center will be gone by morning. Vera realized what was happening. They know we are here. They know there are resistance members in the center, so they are accelerating the harvest before we can cause trouble. They had to make a choice: continue to the communications center, or try to save the people being processed in the medical wing. Either way, they would probably be caught, but at least they might accomplish something. Split up, Vera decided. You go to communications and try to get a message out. I will see if I can disrupt their operations in the medical wing. Commander, that is suicide. So is letting them harvest our entire species without resistance. They separated, each knowing they would probably never see the other again. Vera made her way to the medical wing while Rita continued toward the communication center. The medical wing was a nightmare of efficient brutality. Human technicians moved between the tables like workers in a factory, systematically extracting organs, tissues, and fluids from unconscious Nexari. The victims were kept alive throughout the process, their bodies maintained by machines while everything useful was removed piece by piece. Vera recognized many of the faces on the tables. These were people she had eaten meals with, people who had shared stories about their families and their hopes for the future. Now they were being disassembled like machines. She found the control room that monitored the life support systems keeping the victims alive during harvesting. If she could disable those systems, it would at least give her people a quick death instead of the slow horror of being harvested alive. But as she reached for the controls, a voice spoke behind her. I would not do that if I were you, Commander Vera. She turned to find Captain Thompson standing in the doorway, flanked by 2 armed guards. His expression was calm and almost sad, like a disappointed parent. You have caused us considerable trouble, he continued. We have been monitoring your activities since the day you arrived here. Did you really think we would not notice a resistance leader pretending to be a refugee? Then why did you let me stay? Because you led us to the other resistance cells. Your communications with the Free Nexari groups gave us the locations of their hideouts. We rounded up the last of them yesterday. Vera felt her heart sink. You use me. We use everyone, Commander. It is what we do. Thompson gestured to the harvesting operation continuing around them. I want you to understand something before you die. This is not cruelty. This is survival. My species faced extinction on our homeworld centuries ago. We poisoned our environment, depleted our resources, and damaged our genetic diversity beyond repair. So you decided to steal from others? We decided to adapt. Evolution favors the species that can find new resources when old ones are exhausted. We found a galaxy full of species with biological materials we need to survive. Thompson led her to a window overlooking the main harvesting floor. Look at them, Commander. Your people are not suffering. They are unconscious throughout the process. They contribute to something greater than themselves. The continuation of human civilization. You call this civilization? Vera gestured at the assembly line of bodies being systematically dismantled. I call it necessity. Your species was dying anyway. The Corlins would have eliminated you completely. We at least preserved the useful parts. The Corlins would not have found us without your help. Thompson smiled. Probably not. But that is beside the point now. He pulled out a tablet and showed her data that made her blood freeze. It was a list of star systems, hundreds of them, each marked with a status indicator. Harvested, in progress, scheduled, or under preparation. This is our 5-year plan, Thompson explained. Each of these systems contains a species with biological materials that human science can use. Some have already been processed. Others are currently undergoing the preparation phase. Preparation phase. Creating the conditions that will make them desperate enough to call for help. Wars, plagues, natural disasters, whatever works best for each species. Vera saw dozens of systems marked under preparation. Millions of beings who had no idea they were being set up for harvest. Why are you showing me this? Because I want you to understand the scope of what we have accomplished. Humanity went from a dying species on a poisoned world to the dominant force in this galaxy. We did it through intelligence, planning, and the willingness to do what was necessary for survival. You did it through deception and murder. We did it through evolution. The species that survive are the ones that can adapt to new circumstances and exploit new resources. Your people never learned that lesson. You stayed on one world, followed old traditions, and waited for someone else to solve your problems when crisis came. Thompson gestured to the harvesting operation. Now your species serves a higher purpose. Nexari genetic material will help human children live longer, healthier lives. Your organs will save human lives. Your tissues will advance human medical science. In death, you achieve more significance than you ever had in life. Before Vera could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed and automated voices announced, "Security breach in Communications Center." Thompson looked annoyed. "Your friend Rita, I assume. Clever of you to create a distraction, but it will not help. We have backup communication systems, and Earth Command already has the location of every resistance cell on this planet." But the alarms continued, and Thompson's expression began to change as reports came in over his communicator. "Captain, we have a problem," a voice reported. "The intruder in communications has accessed our operational database. She is broadcasting classified information on all frequencies." "What kind of information?"
Everything, sir.
"The preparation operations, the harvesting schedules, the complete list of target systems. The transmission is going out to every planet within 50 light years." Thompson's face went white. "Stop her immediately." "We are trying, sir, but she has locked down the communications center and activated some kind of feedback loop. Every time we try to cut the transmission, it amplifies and broadcasts to additional frequencies." Vera felt hope surge in her chest. Rita had not just sent a warning message. She had uploaded their entire operational database to every planet in the region. "You stupid fool," Thompson snarled at Vera. "Do you have any idea what you have done? Those worlds will prepare defenses now. They will unite against us. You have doomed your own species for nothing. I have given them a chance to fight back, something you never intended to give anyone." "Fight back with what? We have the most advanced military in the galaxy. We have been harvesting other species for centuries. No one can stand against us, maybe not alone, but together, 47 worlds might have a chance." The alarm suddenly stopped. Thompson's communicator crackled to life. "Captain, the transmission has ended. The intruder in communications is down. Is she dead?" "Yes, sir." "But Captain, we have incoming signals from multiple star systems. It appears several worlds are attempting to coordinate a response." Thompson looked at Vera with undisguised hatred. "Your friend has signed the death warrant for every species in this sector. When they move against us, we will have no choice but to accelerate all harvesting operations. Instead of decades of sustainable collection, we will strip every useful world bare within months. Then you will face unified resistance instead of isolated victims. That is more than any of your prey has had before." "Resistance is futile, Commander. We have spent centuries perfecting our techniques. We know how to break species, how to make them beg for our help, how to turn their strengths against them." "Maybe, but now they know what you are. You can never again hide behind the mask of salvation." Thompson raised his weapon, but before he could fire, explosions rocked the facility. Through the windows, Vera could see fires burning across the center. More alarms began sounding as human guards ran toward new emergencies. "Captain, we have breaches in sectors 4 through 7. A voice reported over the communicator. "It appears to be coordinated sabotage." Thompson's expression changed from anger to concern. "Sabotage by whom?" "Unknown, sir. But they seem to know the facility layout very well." Vera smiled despite her situation. Rita was not the only one who volunteered to infiltrate this center. "We have been here for days, learning your routines, mapping your weaknesses." "Impossible. We accounted for all resistance members. You accounted for the ones you knew about. But resistance movements grow, Captain. Every family you harvest creates new enemies. Every world you destroy creates new allies." The explosions were getting closer now. Through the chaos, Vera could hear something that made her heart leap. The sound of Nexari voices shouting battle cries in her native language. The free Nexari had not been captured. They had used the information from Rita's broadcast to coordinate attacks on all the human facilities simultaneously. "This facility is lost," Thompson said into his communicator. "Begin emergency evacuation procedures and activate the orbital bombardment systems." "Sir, that will destroy the entire harvesting operation. Better than letting it fall into enemy hands. If we cannot harvest them, we will eliminate them completely." Thompson turned back to Vera, his weapon raised. "Your species ends tonight, Commander. If we cannot use you, no one can. But before he could fire, the door to the control room exploded inward. Through the smoke came figures in improvised combat gear, Nixari resistance fighters led by Dr. Nolan. The battle that followed was brief but decisive. The human guards were trained for suppressing frightened refugees, not for fighting determined warriors defending their homeworld. When the smoke cleared, Thompson lay dead on the floor of the control room. Around the facility, the sounds of battle were fading as the surviving humans retreated to their ships. Vera looked out at the night sky where the human fleet was preparing to bombard the planet's surface. In a few hours, Kepler would be a lifeless wasteland. But across the galaxy, Rita's transmission was still spreading. 47 worlds now knew the truth about humanity's rescue operations. They would prepare, they would unite, and they would fight. The age of humanity's easy harvests was over. The monsters had been exposed and their prey had become predators. The real war was just beginning.